And welcome again to another episode here of Economic Preppers. Of course, I'm joined by my normal co-hosts, Patrick and Dylan. Welcome, guys. But we have a special guest today, Ben from Peony Lane. Ben, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on, guys. Cheers to you.
Cheers. So can you
cheers.
While I share your there we go. While I share the website, why don't you tell us a little bit about Peony Lane besides how to pronounce it properly?
How about you tell me about this cab I'm drinking?
So Peony Lane is all natural wine. It's wild yeast, no additives, wine that doesn't have anything else in it outside of the grape. And it's a bit of a family project. It was kind of my dad's hobby to make wine, and I was looking for a business. So I just jumped on and started doing it, and it's been a really fun journey for the last 5 years.
Awesome, Ben. Well, we're really happy to have you here. We got a lot of things to talk about. We know that you're very much on the prepping side, and there's a lot. Feel free to jump in on whatever topic you like, because we got plenty of them today. But we're going to jump right into our first topic and our first subject, which is the mess in the U.S. Okay, so as I cue that story up, and the first one is pretty obvious. We've got banking issues. We got another week, another bank. This one is we got PacWest. We have First Republic. I mean, Patrick, why don't you just run down the week that was in banking a little bit, and as we start to talk about the U.S. news.
So, in the world of banking, the narrative was it's okay. We all covered First Republic. Everyone is good. Don't worry, your money is safe. Yelin is there assuring us it's all good. And yet that afternoon, you see stocks start tanking. I mean, we're talking 6 or 7 or 8 major banks over the last 2 days that have told us they're in trouble by their stock value, that they've had to actually halt several of these banks so that they can stop losing value and stop the bleeding. We don't know how much blood they have lost yet, but they're desperately looking for buyers for these failed banks and failed institutions. I told you so.
Well, Dylan, like with everything going on right now, we've got all these different issues. We've got the different banks. There's so many on the horizon that could fall apart. What's your take on what we got with the banking at the onset here?
I think it's only going to get worse. I mean, we've been saying it for a while. I think we all like Bitcoin here, and so if you're in that space, the banks are a problem, and they've been a problem for a long time, and they're not to be trusted. And there's been people calling it out, and we've been calling out different bank failures that they were going to happen. That it's just inevitable due to the immense printing and leverage and risks that they're taking. And then, of course, when you have a swift change with the interest rate rises, that's going to shake things up. And so it's nothing that we don't expect. And I think just going forward, we can just expect more of these smaller banks to continue to show stress and to continue to have problems and go under. So I think it's inevitable that's going to keep happening. And, there could be a much bigger event on the horizon as well.
Well, speaking on big events on the horizon, we've got lots of different things that are floating out there. First off, we've got, the Federal Reserve met this week, and then they don't know what to, they continue to raise rates. And it's the highest interest rate, I believe, since 2007. And we kind of know what happened back then. And then we've got all the different job numbers that have come out. And the job numbers are basically showing that, we're just, it's all conflicting. It's like the initial jobless claims, they jump near to 18-month high, but yet you got numbers that come out from ADP that don't match those numbers. And then the other thing that to mention is the debt ceiling. Like they're already hinting that Yelin's came out and said we could hit our heads on the debt ceiling. So there's so many different factors. How is anyone to negotiate these murky waters? Dylan, I'll throw it back to you. I mean, what are your takes on this? The unemployment and the debt ceiling and all these numbers, they just confusing people?
I think in part, yes. I mean, I think the average person, these things are going to be completely foreign. We're immersed in it, and even still, it's confusing, right? It's one thing 1 week, then it's another thing the other week, and then they're directing your attention here, then over there. It's really hard to pay attention and follow up, and I think that's a serious problem that we're dealing with, and it's something that hopefully there's solutions on the horizon.
Patrick? I know that there's these obscure rules that the Democrats are trying to throw out there to get something done about the debt ceiling. But do you think that could be the catalyst, that fight the problem reaction solution? Is this how they're going to launch the U.S. CBDC?
I don't know. I'm keeping my eye out on May 31st, right? Because Yelin was pretty clear. We're running out of money by the end of the month. And I see something being passed like at midnight, that kind of bill that has a lot of fluffy stimulus in it that's going to further increase the inflationary impacts of what's happening. I don't think that anything they're about to do is going to help the situation. You have really unwise leadership making really unwise decisions. And there is no way that any decision that they make in the next month is going to look good. This is all set up for a narrative, guys. It's not going to get better right now. I'm sorry to say that. I think that what I'm saying the most is get ready for more damage, more carnage, more chaos, more pressure on your pockets. Be careful in the grocery stores. And the best thing you can do is stock up on your groceries. The fixed costs that you can keep down low today, get it done. Nothing is going to work with Yellen. Nothing is going to work with Powell. If they put the brakes on, that's going to only make it so that the dollar is going to continue to weaken and the inflation is going to get worse. If they don't put the brakes on, then the banks are going to fail if they keep putting the interest rates on. So I don't know what they're going to do, but it's not going to be good either way.
No. And just to bring it back to banking for a moment here, as we got Ben back here, we'll get his opinion on. I'd love, before I get to that, but Ben, what is your take on the as an employer, and I'm sure you have lots of staff and you've got lots of people going on in that community. What's your take on the general economic outlook for both your employees and just people in your community?
So I'm a one-man show, so I don't have any employees, but my experience in this is I always kind of think back to like what do people see this that are not really paying attention? What are my friends seeing that are not into Bitcoin or into these financial markets? And all these banks are banks that are not in Western Colorado. They're not banks that any of my friends have ever heard of. So you see all the graphs and you see the size of these things failing, and it's still so disconnected. It's, oh, the Fed will bail them out. Like nothing has hit home. We see it coming. We're looking, but nothing has hit home yet. It's not hit the real economy yet. And I mean, if I had employees, none of them would have $250,000 in their bank account or above that to be worried about. So it's not hit the real world yet. It's maybe hit the market, and if you have a 401k that has some bank stocks in it, you feel it. But I'm just kind of waiting for the shoe to drop where it's a bank that people I know of have heard of fails, whether it's a local bank in my community or just a larger one. And it doesn't really seem like those larger ones are going to fail. So I'm hoping nothing hits my community as far as banks go, but like it seems like things are just going down, and it's not going to stop anytime soon. So
that's some real interesting points you hit on there, because I know like these are a little bit of obscure banks and smaller banks with a lot of capital in them, or a lot of big accounts. So it's wondering, there is conspiracy theories that are out there saying like they're depleting the FDIC, which has limited funds. They're almost out. They're just kind of picking the banks they want to fail almost and funding them first, and then before they start to tear down something else. That's one theory that's out there. But the contagion of banking is not just on the U.S. soil. So we've got all the banks. We had news that came out this week from Europe, and I think Australia as well. But we had Europe announcing that their rate went up a quarter point, basis point. So it went up 25, same as the Fed Reserve did. And then we've got bank deals falling through. Like this is out of Canada, where First Horizon was supposed to be, their shares crashed today because they were supposed to do a deal with TD Bank, which is one of the largest banks in Canada. So as these things start to fall through, it's no wonder that we see these banks that are under pressure and their prices just tanking. So I'll put it out there, like, guys, is this going to continue? Is this going to be like the inevitability? I see Dylan that's saying yes. Like, yep. I'll let you start off here. It's just going to keep going? Where's the end in sight?
I think we'll see a much bigger event. I think more of these will fail. It seems like part of it's by design that these institutions are failing. And you see this in markets all the time. I don't know if it's completely related, But I used to work in aviation. I was selling jet fuel. And when I came into the market, about 5 companies had bought up 80% of the market. And they've been doing that over the past, 10 to 15 years. I don't know the exact timeline, but there used to be all these like regional fuel suppliers in the market. And then you had a few companies that did really well. And this happens in any market. And they start buying other companies that are not doing as well. And they start expanding and doing all that kind of stuff. And then next thing you know, the whole market's captured by these, basically monopolies in their respective markets. And it was interesting to see that there. And I think a similar thing might be playing out here, where we're going to see money, capital, resources flee these regional banks and be directed towards or under the control of larger banks. Like Ben mentioned, a lot of the larger banks don't look like they're going to be failing. We're going to see them grow in strength as people move their capital and resources to them, because like those won't fail. And these smaller ones, we'll see them drop off, or people have less interest in them. And I think the big moment will be when one of these big banks gets tested. Will one of these big banks fail, and how will that set the stage?
Yeah, and I'm just to throw it over to Patrick here in transition for JP Morgan. They just acquired, I think it was First Republic, and now they're over 10% of all banking holdings. So now even Elizabeth Warren, one of the biggest anti-crypto and I guess she's a big proponent of banking, but even she's upset about it. Like, are these banks, were they back in the position of too big to fail? Are we on the verge of the Big Short 2.0, Patrick?
Yes, it's bigger than before. It's the commercial banks that have huge problems with commercial mortgage-backed securities that are going to hit the pensions, that are going to take away all of the money from the working class citizens. The end of the banks started in 2009 when Satoshi released Bitcoin to the world. And that's it. It's game over, guys. Like, you could try to play a game with Bitcoin, but you're going to lose.
Yeah. There's another conspiracy theory about what launched. Like, people
would you guys drink to that?
Yeah, I'll drink to that. But why not? Why not? Sponsored by Peony Wine, of course. But I'll say this, like, the global financial crisis of 2008, a lot of that kind of spurred, like, there's lots of conspiracies that the people who were involved in that said, hey, we got to do something else. That launched Bitcoin in 2009. So that the banking crisis was narrowly averted in 2008. I think we were about an hour away from having that happen before the too big to fail event happened. And they just Congress threw some money at it to save some banks. But
what is this thing, like 65%?
It's 15%. It's pretty strong.
Okay.
Here is this lovely Merlot that I'm sampling today.
I'm drinking a nice unlabeled blend that I had no idea what it is that I made, but
proprietary.
That's the perks of being a winemaker. But if we're talking about any consolidation of industry, like Dylan was saying, is kind of whether we want to talk about conspiracy theories or not, that's just the direction of the fiat system. There could be things behind the scene that push them forward, but fiat being close to the money printer, that phenomenon just pushes things into more centralized areas. And so maybe that gets to a point where it's so centralized that it's it either breaks or it works. And that's what I'm afraid of, is why I'm into Bitcoin, is like, I think it's one or the other. Either that centralization takes all the power, or we can break it away and get through before they get to that point. And that's just the direction everything seems to be going. So whether they're pushing it behind the scene or not, it's moving towards consolidation, and consolidation of the money, consolidation of that is a scary place to be.
Yeah, that's a big move that they like to do in recessionary times. It's much easier to control several banks versus hundreds or thousands of banks. So it's the same of anything. So that's why they're the theory, or what's the evidence is showing, that smaller banks are going down, regionals would be next. And you could say the same thing about businesses too for the last several years. But with banking, I just want to point, normally we talk about a little bit about real estate as well, but I think that we need to point out, why are the banks having such troubles right now? Not many people quite get it, but what's going on is that they make money through lending. And we see all these stories now. We have auto companies that can't, they're having problems. They're not making loans. We see that we're having banks losing money on mortgages for the first time. We have these programs that are pushing high risk credit home buyers into mortgage products. So guys, I mean, this is the kind of recipe that happened in like 2006, 2007. So I think that we're kind of nearing that tipping point where it's going to go. It's not going to get better. It's going to get worse. I think that, I don't know. Have you guys seen anybody who's buying a house or a car lately?
People are trying to. I mean, I've seen people try to avoid it. I know I got a listing for my car, and I was able to see the prices I could buy the same truck for and the sale price of my truck. And I know that spread has widened between, and it's about priced the same as it was a year ago, but the price I could sell it for has went down drastically. I've just heard there's going to be shakeups in the auto industry. Everyone keeps saying that. And I also keep seeing real estate agents and realtors and real estate investors consistently being like, now's the time to buy or get ready to buy, right? They're like, there's huge opportunity coming, and all the chatter's happening. And what they say is, when there's everyone's talking about something, maybe that's the time to get out of the market, or maybe that's time to be contrarian.
Yeah. Patrick, I know you were nodding your head yes about someone buying a car or house. What's your story there?
You bought a car last month.
Okay, that was out of need. I'm just I wasn't going to bring me as the example.
Well, I know, so you could delete it. It's the wine. I mean, it's like 65%, dude.
All right, this is staying in the show. This is the guy. This is why we want to engage Ben. This is the kind of feel we have.
You asked, do I know anyone who bought a car or a house?
Sometimes you're just too damn honest, Patrick. I needed a car. I had just moved.
I didn't have anyone else that I know that bought anything right now, Jeff. So what was I supposed to say?
All I'm saying is that sales are down. Is all. Oh, well, Ben, this is the environment that we'd like to really foster here. This is just 3 or 4 guys as if we're sitting around a table having a conversation about what we learned this week on the different topics. So,
I mean, but listen, dude, you got a car because you were economic with your car before. And when that thing died, you got a hookup from my bro. Thanks again, Gerald, for hooking up my bro, Jeff. And he works at the dealership. So you got a great deal and you have a good, reliable car. But there are people out there who are buying brand new vehicles, right? That are paying like $90,000 for a Ford F-250 with the quad cab and the dualies on the back. And you're going, your payments are $1,100 a month plus the insurance. That's like a mortgage payment, guys. Like, that doesn't make very much sense, right? So I think that there's a huge difference between something that works for your needs, because there is a cost of having it. I know a lot of friends who buy new cars every 2 years. They just leased cars. It's just kind of a budget that they put aside. They know they're going to spend $300 a month on a new car every 2 years. It's the way it works. That's fine if that's budgeted. But if you are really thinking that having $1,000 car payment is a wise call right now, I really reconsider you to evaluate your priorities, because that's a depreciating asset that can go down at any time. Like, right. It makes me afraid for the people who are really spending their money right now, and honestly, who believe it's a wise call.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are. I'm sorry, go ahead, Dylan.
Oh, I will say that it is something that you need to really be cognizant about and to be strategic about. Like, having a vehicle that's reliable. I mean, it depends on your situation. Like, you need to understand your own situation, obviously. So none of this is financial advice, but having a vehicle that's reliable is really important. Like, I live in the mountains. Ben, you live in the mountains. Having a vehicle that, especially when your business is dependent on getting from point A to point B on time, like, you need to have a vehicle that you can count on. Yeah. And if you don't, like, that can derail you. And so we've been talking about times getting harder and things like that. The last thing you want is a vehicle that doesn't work. And I had to deal with that during the pandemic, where my vehicle, I had an older vehicle, and a part broke and it wasn't available. And I was out of commission. Like, I had to, luckily I had friends and stuff people I could rely on, which is why we talk about fostering that community. But had I not had that there, I was out of luck. Right. And, I couldn't get from point A to point B. And that could have cost me lots of money or time or opportunities. So that's something to keep in mind and think about. especially right now.
Yeah, there's definitely an inherent bias that we get at like the recent marketplace. Like a couple of years ago, with what things were going on, we couldn't get chips for these cars. We could like the new cars are just sitting there, or parts, or they couldn't get these parts to fix cars. So the used market was going out of control because they were just going up and up, if only for their parts, because they couldn't get the chips. I know many repair guys that were just there were cars sitting there 2-3 months because they couldn't get the chips to sell them or fix them. But now, I mean, just like there's not like the loan products are exorbitant. Like the auto loans are like 16, 15 to 20%. Credit cards are now at 30%. People are really contracting where they're spending.
Mhm.
I mean, Ben, I don't know what you're seeing as far as in your area as far as spending, but I mean, are people still spending it like normal, like before, or are they all contracting where they're spending?
I would say people are feeling it, and my where my head's going in this discussion is just so I'm 29, and a lot of my friends are kind of in there. At least the successful ones are starting to think about buying a house, and a lot of them are in Denver, which was one of those markets that went crazy. And so they're all trying to. They didn't buy in this most recent run up, and so they're sitting here, high prices, high interest rate, and they're being told slash thinking like, oh, interest rates will just come down, I'll be able to refinance. And that reminds me in the scene in The Big Short where he's Michael Scott is talking to the stripper, and the stripper's like, oh, I can just refinance, and he's like, no, you're screwed. And if there's so many houses that people bought at 2%, and those people are fine, but these people that are buying now at 5% with still elevated prices that are really counting on that rate to go down, like maybe it will this time, but it seems like we go down in rates, inflation shoots up again. What are the Fed? I mean, the Fed's in a pickle, and we don't know how many times they're going to be able to drop rates back down. And so counting on that, I think it's fair to maybe count on it this time, but counting on that is an investment strategy of, oh, I'll just refinance this house that I can't afford, just doesn't take into account all the crap that could happen to you in the meantime. And it's a pretty scary spot to be. If you get your house at 2%, you're probably going to be able to weather stuff. But if you're just counting on being able to do that in the future, it's a very scary proposition.
Absolutely. I think going back to it's great that you bring up real estate there. I think that this is a slide that we've shared before at some of our presentations. So it's a little small there. I can try and zoom in. Well, anyway, that's you can see that the chart just kind of skyrockets on the right, and this is basically the average income compared to how much it cost, how many times your income you need to buy a house. So right now, like in the last 15 years or so, it's really been masks. Like since 2007, 2008, it was that was peaked up about 7 times. It was 7 times your annual earnings was how much an average cost for a house was, and then it dipped down because interest rates went down. But now interest rates going back up. It's back up in 7 or 8 times your income. So that's why people are feeling the pain of real estate. Realtors, of course, like if you're going to be in the real estate market, if you need to be in the real estate market for whatever reason, if you're going to find a realtor or be involved, find someone that was around before 2007, because they've been through a cycle like this before. Most of them have not. But the people that not surprising that realtors say, hey, buy. They were talking about that in The Big Short, same movie you just referred to. They were trying to sell those communities, and with the communities, they were being foreclosed right at the same time. So realtors are pushing you have to remember how they make their money. They make money through sales. They're going to try and push for more sales. Pretty soon that industry is going to be hit really, really hard because if not already, because of what's going on in the U.S. economy. But again, now it's time to kind of transition over to world events, and we're seeing what's going on that stage, and it's not much better. So let's see. We're starting with Russia, our favorite area. So this story came out, and this is a story that came out about apparently last night there was some attack on the Kremlin, and everybody's denying who it was. Some people are saying, I think it's the White House that did it. Some people think it was Ukraine, but Zelensky said they didn't have the resources to do it. So the question is this a false flag? Is this just a distraction? Is this more just to get people away from what else is happening in the world, Patrick? What do you think?
Don't know. Don't care. I mean, the reality of it is like, I don't know. You want me to speculate on what I think happened in Moscow? Bucket one is what I want to stick to. there was a drone attack. Something's happening. I have no idea why, but I know that what it's probably leading to. I don't know what's going to happen between now and August, but this seems like a reasonable escalatory step in the plan. So, sure, maybe they grenaded themselves. I don't know, but it's for a reason that I don't care about to get us to nationalized control.
Dylan, in the bucket terms here, bucket one, we know that there was an explosion at the Kremlin.
Mm-hmm.
Bucket two, we have all different theories, and we have no idea who it is. Do we care? Like Patrick says, is this just a distraction? Or, I mean, with everything else that's happening in the economy in the next 2 or 3 months, is this just a false flag for them to say, look over here?
Probably. I mean, it's just something to talk about, right? Just some little thing. Like if you're, and this is of course speculation, and I'm not in the military or anything like that, so, or I haven't been. And if you're going to try and take down the Kremlin, like I doubt you do it with one little drone attack, right? Or one little like explosion. So it probably wasn't a serious attack by any major player. And so then maybe it was a serious attack by a very minor player that was the best they could do. Or maybe it was someone, major player messing around with a non-serious attack. Just kind of.
I have a theory. It's Vladimirovич's wife. She came to him and said she wanted to redecorate. He said no. She launched a drone attack. Insurance kicks in. New room for Mrs. Vladimir Vladimirovich.
That's as good a guess as any.
Thank you.
I don't think it's important. I think it's just one of those small drops in the bucket that, like Patrick said, that is leading us towards some new alignment or some sort of CBDC, some type of centralized control system.
We're definitely going to be talking about CBDCs and other things. And let's see. So the next one I want to talk to is kind of what Patrick was hinting about, which is something that is happening in August. And there are more and more stories coming out about this one. BRICS on one of our favorite topics. Now, 19 countries has come up that we have 19 nations either requesting membership or thinking about it, and they're going to make a meet, I think, in August in Durban. So, and with like one of them, I had to go through like 6 or 7 articles to find the list. I think it was this one. Yeah. So if I go down to the list, this guy somehow pulled together the best list, and I couldn't believe I go through like all these articles are almost the same, but you can see the list of countries. I mean, it's not a small list. Okay, there's like 19 countries. We got. I think we definitely want to mention Mexico being on the U.S. border. That's definitely.
I would love to mention Egypt, my home country.
And I also want to mention Argentina because I actually just did a video the other day about Argentina about they got a bailout from the IMF, but they weren't allowed when they took the money from the IMF. They weren't allowed to say that they had to deny or say that they're not going to use it or set up any cryptocurrency setup. So it's interesting. All these conditions. So Argentina takes a bailout from IMF like a month or so ago, and here they are applying to get into BRICS. So it's very, very telling of how big of a story the BRICS is. Now, Patrick, I know this is a big one for you, so I'm going to let you lead off on the BRICS comments.
Man, I have so many things that I think about there, but my one question is, does that mean Argentina is exempt from the need to use Unicoin?
Oh, we'll get to Unicoin in a moment, but they're playing in both worlds, right? I mean, we're talking about.
They can't do it. Sorry, they said no. They promised it.
Yeah, I guess it was the terms and conditions be interesting there.
I think, is Argentina safe from all the crap that's about to hit the fan? I don't know.
No.
Like, sorry, we agreed with you guys that we can't. I'm so sorry.
Well,
Remember, honey, you told me I couldn't.
Argentina is the crap that's getting hit by the fan right now.
Yeah.
I think they're having.
I mean, at least their money
inflation.
is 100.
100%. Yeah, it's just they're close to wheelbarrow money down in Argentina, and they're just spending as fast as they can because of their inflation. So they're looking to get out. I mean, they need they need the BRICS in a hurry. They need to get out of their system in a hurry to fix things. But Dylan, I saw you shaking your head.
Premium on Bitcoin right now in Argentina.
I mean, there's a premium on everything that you can't get down there.
No, just Bitcoin alone.
I didn't
40%?
know. I didn't know there's a premium there. But I do know
today, this morning, it was at 76% premium in Argentina for Bitcoin.
Because
compared to the government exchange rate, though, which is BS for everything.
Yeah. Well, when I was there, I love telling this story because I think
no, in gold. It's only bought in gold.
Bitcoin.
Okay.
Yeah, you can only trade gold or silver,
Interesting.
like diamonds. They're not taking the native currencies.
No. Well, because what they
Yeah,
would
who would do
do is
that?
when I was there, Patrick, you had the government exchange rate, and this was 2015, 2016. It was 8-1 pesos to the dollar. Then you had the blue rate. And if you look at the blue rate was like 12 to 15-1. So you could double the amount of pesos you get. And they wouldn't allow, you couldn't get US dollars in the country. You had to bring them in the country. And there's a lot of goods that you couldn't get in. So like iPods, iPhones, things like that are coveted and kind of desirable around the world. You couldn't get those in Argentina. So you had to bring them in from other countries to get them there. And
It's
people
like Egypt.
they would trade their pesos because they were required to basically take pesos at the shops. They weren't allowed to take other money necessarily. And then they would basically trade you the pesos for these goods that they can store the value of their money and their wealth and their labor. So it does not surprise me that there's a premium on something like Bitcoin because they realize like, well, we can work and instead of keeping our money in pesos, which I think now what is the exchange rate? It's like 200-1.
It's deflating every single day. Like they can't get rid of their dollars fast enough. They're buying anything they could possibly buy at all.
Yeah. And that's what happens in that kind of environment. Like it's just like the silver market, right? The silver spot price is what, 25, 26 bucks. Try and find an ounce of silver for 26 bucks. You can't, because there's a premium on top, because that is the real world price versus the paper price. And that's very much what you're seeing. The paper price in Argentina for Bitcoin is not what it really costs to actually buy a Bitcoin in Argentina. That's just like the localized marketplace, and that's how arbitrage happens.
If you could go back to that slide with all the countries listed.
Yes, 1 second.
There's just below all the listed countries, it basically just says BRICS Plus is not an official initiative. There's no formal process or organization for joining. And so just because all these countries have expressed interest, I understand like there could be formal ties in the future, but if there's not specifically like, hey, if you join BRICS, you do free trade with all these countries or for certain things or a specific alliance, it's real easy to say, yeah, I want to be part of this. Of course you would. There's gigantic economies in there, and it's good strategy to say that you want to be part of it. But until BRICS gets formalized, it's not a nothing burger, but like it's more of an idea than an actual thing, because maybe they agree on free trade, maybe they're a war alliance, but they're not going to agree on a reserve currency at all, and that's like a huge sticking point that for alliances going into the future is, I mean, no one's ever going to get to the point where the US is at, because the level of trust has just been broken down so much.
Well, right now, I think they're just so upset with the dollar and the inflationary nature of the SWIFT system and the sanctions that they are meeting. They do meet once a year, and it's not formalized as an organization. There's no treaty or anything. It does set up trade agreements, and there have been some trade agreements set up with the first 5 countries, the BRICS countries: Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, for new viewers. But there's also now like these other 19. Maybe some of them are going to straddle, and they'll be playing in both sides. And that could be what Argentina is doing, because they just borrowed from the IMF, but now they want to apply to join. And Mexico is part of the North American agreement, but they just applied to join. But I think that this meeting in August could be telling, because one of their top agenda points is consideration of launching a new world reserve currency, and we have no idea what that's going to be, but that will really it'll cement BRICS' existence and like kind of push forward and saying, well, now we have a competitive playing field. We have Bitcoin, we have gold and silver, and then we have the dollar system, and then we have the BRICS system, whatever we want to call that. So we could have 4 things going on at once. So I think we need to look at all these things and see how it's all going to play out, because none of us fully know just yet, but we could speculate. So that allows us to turn the page now over to cryptocurrency. And I think we got several stories to talk about that, including my own theory on CBDCs, which I shared, and we'll be sharing here again about how I think it's going to be launched in the US and globally, and we can, you can throw darts at that. But the first story on crypto is, I think, about Coinbase, right? And we got Coinbase that they basically had it. They've had it with the US, and they're deciding that they're going to go outside the US. So Coinbase stepping out of the US with an international exchange. They've been asking forever for clarity from the SEC. They're not getting it. And then they just launched the lawsuit and saying, if you guys don't want to tell us and we're still operating here, you can't legislate us if we don't know the rules of engagement. So they're litigating them. So now Coinbase is saying at the same time, let's look at expanding outside of the U.S. So, Patrick, what's your take on Coinbase's strategy here?
So they received a Wells notice. Nothing came of that. After they received a Wells notice, they went back and said to the SEC that they were going to sue them now. And then they decided they're leaving the country. So that's exactly what my response is to anyone who says, what happens when governments want to regulate crypto, when they want to tax crypto? They'll leave. They'll go to a favorable advantage and find a location that is an economic free trade zone, like the country of Georgia or Singapore, places that allow you better advantages and less regulations.
Ben, I'm going to throw this to you next. So I know you're definitely a Bitcoin guy. Do you see the fact that Bitcoin is governless and borderless? Is that two of the main things that's its selling points, and that's why people are heading that direction?
Definitely. I mean, there's definitely a bifurcation of people that trust the system and people who don't. And anyone who jumps off the trust the system bandwagon, they go to a place where there's no trust, and Bitcoin's kind of the catch-all in that. There's definitely a lot of getting caught up in scams and shitcoins along the way. But if you're the education about money just goes towards Bitcoin if you want to find the right the best money there. So yeah. I'm not surprised to see Coinbase and all these other countries leaving. I mean, it is just ridiculous to see Gary Gensler talk about all this stuff and be pretty much like in his words, very clear that everything other than Bitcoin is a security, but not actually do anything about it. I mean, it's just like, oh, cool. So it's another thing that government's not good at. We can just talk about it and not actually do anything.
Gary Gensler. Dylan, do you believe any Gary saying? Is he mostly FUD because he's contradicting Gary Gensler from 5 years ago?
I don't know. I think we just hear sound bites. I think there's a lot more complexity to this. I mean, when I hear that Coinbase, back to that they are leaving, I mean, any company that I think has built its platform on promoting a lot of these different cryptos, a lot of different altcoins, they basically carved out a niche to try and get away with counterfeiting money, extracting value at scale from the market. And you see, like, if you pay attention to this space and you pay attention to projects and, projects with big names attached to it, how many of those projects do we have collapse over the recent crypto market collapse that were backed by reputable people and venture funds and like the smartest people around, that just turned out to be complete and utter scams. And then we see like the rise of these meme coins, and there's no like, there's no regulations, there's nothing around those. Because that's an environment that's working, because that's what it's saying is, and what I see in my perspective is that you're seeing the main money that people have been using or thinking as money, like the US dollar, is failing. And something that Patrick talks about, and he talked about the crypto commandments, is that the dollar is garbage. And when that starts failing, people start trying to take on a bunch more risk and basically throw a dart at the wall and put their money in anything that they think could help them escape the system. The problem is that doesn't necessarily help them escape when all the things they're putting their money in are unsustainable things, right? It's just quickening that pace or making things worse along the road. So when I hear about Coinbase moving out, I understand, because there's a lot of countries that are, that have been hurt by the fiat system. But unless they're like building on a platform that has potential for more stability than the US dollar, or then something like Bitcoin, it's doomed to failure. And in the short term, they'll harvest a lot of gains and money because it's there. But the long term, there'll be people wrecked all over the place. So that's what I see.
Yeah, there's the nascent part of crypto being most projects being less than 5 years old, or Bitcoin being 13, well, the granddaddy of them all. But it's still a very, very young project in space. So it's wild west for the most part of the economy. So as such, things will get exploited, money will flow around. But as far as money flow, we've seen those people that are big into Bitcoin have dipped their toe in even harder this time. So now in the last 18 days, or as of a couple of days ago, so that's 3 weeks, we'll call it, $1.8 billion. We've got that right. Nearly $2 billion worth of crypto, Bitcoin has been acquired. So the whales are stocking up on Bitcoin. Patrick, I'm sure you know some of these guys as being an ex-miner. What's your take on all the big boys adding to their stockpile of Bitcoin right now?
I don't know any of these guys at all. I have no knowledge of any of them or any of you guys at all, if you're watching. What I will tell you is wallets that hold over 100 Bitcoin have been accumulating. Wallets that hold over 1,000 Bitcoins are accumulating even harder. Institutions are starting to accumulate. Banks are starting to accumulate. Individuals are starting to accumulate who have never been in Bitcoin before. The amount of wallets that have more than a Bitcoin now, whole coiners are growing faster than ever before. We don't have crypto moving. The exchanges are drained of Bitcoin. We have not seen exchanges this low for such a long time. I think since 2017, it hasn't been this low and dry on exchanges. Guys, we are ready for takeoff. I've been telling everyone this is the kind of stuff you wait for, and it couldn't have come at a better time. When the government is about to wreck things so bad, Bitcoin is here to rescue us.
Well, Ben, I know that in times of uncertainty and especially financial uncertainty, people run towards safety. And if they're running towards Bitcoin now, do you make that correlation? Is Bitcoin part of safety now? And
My
as
face
far as
look
the
a little
economy?
bit red.
More and more people are realizing that Bitcoin is safety. But what Dylan was saying is right. Like in learning about hyperinflationary times, people start gambling more, and you just look for any rocket ship that can get you above water, really. And so there are still going to be a ton of people that don't find Bitcoin, but the majority of people majority of people who are looking are starting to find Bitcoin, and at least, I mean, go to gold, whatever, just get out of these insanely inflationary currencies.
Yeah.
And it's great to see. And Patrick, I'm fired up. Like I everything I read about the Bitcoin market right now is, I'm absolutely no expert and a horrible trader, but it just like fires me up because it's like, okay, it's like happening, but not quite, but it's about to happen. And at a perfect time where you see the weakness of the fiat system. So it'll be really, if there is that price juxtaposition of like that ideal, I don't know, just the perception juxtaposition of the fiat system collapsing alongside Bitcoin ripping. And we know that Bitcoin ripping is not like price action does not mean Bitcoin strength, but we also have seen the hash rate go up so much. We've seen coins distribute. Like everything about Bitcoin is so killer right now that happening alongside the banking failures is just really interesting to see, and hopefully will open a lot of eyes to people.
And we're seeing stability in the mining sector because for some reason the difficulty is not like going out of whack. I mean, the difficulty rate and the luck factor are just kind of staying right about par. So we're able to earn as miners right now. And I'm loving, I mean, this time feels like it's just right, like it's right. You've got S19 Pros right now running for about $1,500. I mean, this is pretty cool stuff.
Dylan, is this the tipping point? Is this actually is this the crux of the launch of Bitcoin for the masses?
Oh, it'd be great. I don't want it to be. I mean, selfishly, I want more time to accumulate.
Fair.
People would like to talk about, and I think once you go down the Bitcoin rabbit hole, like you start to understand what it is, and you can see its future and its potential. But one thing that seems to be consistent and hasn't necessarily been disproven is that Bitcoin will test your time preference. And it seems like people that say they have a low time preference are expecting Bitcoin to go to the moon tomorrow. And if we do experience this massive transformation, like where Bitcoin becomes a global reserve currency, or the global monetary base, then that's something that you don't necessarily want to happen overnight. I know we talked about there was the chatter a few weeks back or a month back or so about the $1 million Bitcoin in 90 days. going on, and that's a scenario that many people in the space, if you're in the space, you believe that's going to happen over time, but you don't want that to happen right away. And so I always got to say, like, there's always a lens of caution you should look at the market from, especially when you're Patrick's like excited and fired up.
Patrick's changing his vote now from a month ago.
What?
I know you voted against that happening. Now you're like, well, maybe.
No, not 1,090 days, but I'm really waiting for it. Like, dude, if it goes,
I mean, it can definitely go. Like, it can definitely go up, but it can also, there's also people keep talking about that we've potentially seen the tops of a lot of these markets, and that we were mentioned this a few months back, and this was a big narrative that we might see some run up, but we think there's going to be a big negative event that happens later this year. So it's like, are we changing tunes on that, or because things are looking promising now, or is that like, where are we at here? And so I just want to say it's always good to exercise some caution before you get too high on hopium.
Well,
no, I think I'm still expecting it. Like, this is literally coming in August. This summer is going to be the prep time, and fall's going to suck for you guys. So really just get ready for Bitcoin to give you whiplash. For those of you who have got in this year at 15,000, good job. I'm so happy for you guys. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Don't even say anything. Just thumbs up it. I don't need you to identify yourself. I just want to be happy with you and know that I rejoice with you guys who are dollar cost averaging in. Those of you who are selling your farming and your wheat for Bitcoin. Those of you who are sharing your delicious grapes with us in liquid form. I mean, who warm our hearts and our cheeks. Thanks, Ben.
Well, it's certainly clear to us that like the prices of things are going to go up, and Bitcoin seems to be on sale. We'll get to gold and silver soon, but like if you can buy things that are like 25% of what you think the future value will be, clearly it's not financial advice. It's just smart business. If you think Bitcoin is available at 25, 30,000, it's going to be worth 100 in a couple of years. Why would you not be interested? Same thing if you think silver is going to be over $100. Why would you not be interested when you could buy? Even if, it says 25 on paper, it costs you like 35.
We get to talk gold and silver. I'm so excited about that.
We'll get there. We will get there. But as I was trying to work up to this transition, which Patrick interrupted me, but I'll regroup here. Everybody wants to know how the things are going to play out. We don't know how things are going to play out. We can speculate. But over this past weekend, I was able to come up with some thoughts when I was thinking more about, I think I shared it in this program when we talked with Lynette Zhang and Unicoin about how these things might play out. So Patrick can help me present two videos here that I shared out on Twitter. Patrick, why don't you go ahead? And this is my thoughts. This is just my opinion of how I think that the CBDCs are going to be orchestrated, because language is important and all these things are important. So go ahead and share that one out.
Would you like me to narrate as I play, or just let you talk?
You can talk however you like, and you let me know when the first one's done. We'll take a break and we'll come back to the second part.
Okay, here's Jeff talking about it.
Okay, I'm going to attempt to try to explain CBDCs and how they're going to be implemented, because it's very complicated. But first, you need to understand the current system. The system that uses these things over here in the right in green. You've got the dollar, you've got the pound, you've got the yen, you get the euro. They all come from the Federal Reserve with the dollar, the Bank of England with the pound, Bank of Japan with the yen, and you got European Central Bank with the euro. All of them connect upwards through the International Monetary Fund back to the Bank of International Settlements. That is the central bank of central banks. This one governs them all. Okay, now you break it down in each country. In the Federal Reserve, for example, in the U.S., you have regional central banks. You have just the banks and the branches themselves, like Chase and PNC, all those other banks. Then you have retailers and businesses, and then consumers all the way at the bottom. Okay, right now, just to go back over the right one more time, these currencies go from top to bottom, that they're used throughout the system. The plan now, what CBD's explained here, the plan now is that they've launched this new central bank coin called Unicoin, right? And let me explain that where that goes. So Unicoin is right here. It's the U with the two dots, the umlaut over it. That's going to go from the Bank of International Settlements through the IMF through the central banks. That is going to be how they exchange.
And that's going to be how they what, Jeff?
That's is right here at the U with the two dots, the umlaut over it. That's going to go from the Bank of International Settlements through the IMF through the central banks. That is going to be how they exchange between the central banks on a CBDC platform. They're all going to use one currency called the Unicoin. The central bank digital currency, such as Fed Now, that goes here. Okay, so now you have Fed Now. Let's go over here. Fed Now is going to be on the regional banks, from the Federal Reserve all the way through the regional banks and the banks to the retailers and businesses. They have already said that this is an RCBDC or a retail CBDC. That means the Fed Now, whatever coin they're going to call it Fed coin, is only going to work between the Federal Reserve all the way down to retailers. That means Target, Walmart, Walgreens, Home Depot, the apps that they provide, and the banks themselves. That is how you will interact with the CBDC. You will not be able to, I don't believe, extract the CBDC from the system. They will keep this currency all within the digital platform system. So you will only interact with its CBDC through this digital platform. That is the control mechanism. That is not developed yet, but that's also how they're going to say that you're not forced into the system, but you're participating because you're using the app.
Man, that's really interesting. What else do you think?
The app part, that's the part that doesn't exist yet.
Oh,
But that's what we're watching for. And that's where they're going to pull you into the central bank digital system. So that could be your employer, that could be having to work with your particular bank, getting an updated app, or a merchant like Walmart.
man, Jeff, that was really wonderfully done. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Patrick. Yeah, and just to expand on that, just I like it came to me. I had to illustrate and narrate it too, just to try and put it out there. And I follow me on Instagram and Twitter for the stuff like that. But I want to get your opinion on that, guys, and I've got more commentary on that. But what do you think, Dylan? What do you think on that what if plan of the implementation?
Yeah. So I mean, I think the app that you mentioned is a critical piece of it. It's like, and I think the way that the CBDC will be implemented is making people ask for it, making people want to have it, making them desire it, making them feel insecure with their current setup, which is what's happening with these regional banks, making them feel insecure with where their money's stored, and them seeking out a system or a mechanism of protection and benefits. And so one way to do that, to let the market forces play out, because it's much easier if you just let the market do that, but if you just give the right nudges, you get major retailers on board, like you mentioned, Home Depot, Walmart, these massive retailers, and they integrate the CBDC, point of sale system and their inventory system or whatever that tracks all their products and services, and they implement that, and maybe they're incentivized with quicker loans or lower rates on their loans or more money. Things like that. So when they're in compliance with what the Fed's parameters are, they get access to capital faster. And so they're going to do that because, it cuts down their costs. And especially a giant retailer like Walmart, they're always about cost cutting. So they're going to cut down their costs more and more and more. And then you as a consumer, when you interact with them, you could probably interact with them still with your dollars, or you can use the, whatever the token or the Unicoin or whatever the Fed Now CBDC payment is. And that will then contain all the information of that transaction that then can be controlled and manipulated. Levers can be pulled. I mean, you mentioned earlier about the implementing a policy where applicants for mortgages with higher credit worthiness will be charged more to subsidize applicants for mortgages with lower credit worthiness, right? That's an implementation of kind of a political ideals. Like, well, these people who can't afford houses, we got to help them. How are we going to help them? Well, let's just make the people that can't afford houses pay for it. Oh, that's great, right? So it's these good intentions, what they say about the good intentions. So right. I see that playing out like that. So people are going to ask for it. People are going to be like, wow, I can get 20% more at Home Depot if I just use their Home Depot money instead of the dollar. Okay, cool. I'm going to do that, especially if people are cash strapped. Their, prices have gone up. If this can alleviate some of that, they're going to rush towards this, because the majority of people aren't thinking what they're giving up in order to get those benefits, because when you get given money or something for free, there's always a trade-off, right?
Absolutely.
So those are my thoughts on it.
Well, I'll definitely comment on those later, but I want to turn it over to Ben. Now, Ben, I don't know how much you know about CBDCs. Or probably are you as confused as everybody else of how this is going to be rolled out, and whether it's and are you in favor of it? Are you against it? What are your thoughts on it?
No, come on. I'm totally come on.
Oh,
check.
yes,
Dylan,
that's
I'm
right.
totally-
Dude, I apologize, Ben, on his behalf. Jeff, that was
Sometimes you
really-
just got to
No,
be
he's not in
the
favor of
devil's
it. He loves
advocate host.
Bitcoin. He takes Bitcoin for wine. Sorry,
Yeah,
Ben.
so
Go
that's
ahead, though.
exactly where I'm going. And Dylan, I'm totally on board with that. And where you're going leads me to why it's so important to both onboard businesses to Bitcoin and support businesses who run Bitcoin or who accept Bitcoin, because that is the fight directly against that incentivization of using the slave coin CBDC, whatever. Like, there has to be ways to spend Bitcoin to be able to make Bitcoin usable and holdable. And I mean, it's such an awareness thing that I work on. Is friends ask me like, oh, but you can't spend Bitcoin everywhere. I'm like, man, I make like a few $1,000s a month in Bitcoin, like for Bitcoin sales. Bitcoiners want to spend everywhere. And if businesses could see that, they would start accepting it, and that would open up this huge market for Bitcoin, which would increase adoption a huge amount. So last summer, I just put out a sign that said Bitcoin accepted here, and I got a lot of, most people don't understand it, and a lot of people just commented on it. I got a lot of boomer dudes being like, be careful, it's down 70% or it's down 50%. And I'm like, bro, it's down 70%, and I want your Bitcoin. But
Yes.
just having ways to use it in the real world is great, because you can, one is like, those chain analysis programs or companies are getting better at tracking Bitcoin, and privacy is definitely something that needs to be increased. And if you can just spend your Bitcoin and help businesses that are producing good things and people that are pushing the right way build a non-KYC stack through purchases, or just help educate everyone, get that Litecoin out of here.
Whoa. Hey,
He said, now hold on. He said privacy and crypto. So I immediately went to Litecoin.
I know, but seriously, my man Charlie Lee, I gotta have his back. Charlie Lee mimicked a great version of Bitcoin. It's not Bitcoin, nor would he say it's Bitcoin, but he mimicked the second best.
It's a different use case.
You got it, Charlie. I didn't let it happen.
But there is no second best.
Wow.
That's exactly something Charlie would say too.
Well, I really like your take there, Ben. But Patrick, what is your thoughts on the implementation I just laid out as a what if for the CBDC?
Bro, you've been more right than wrong lately. So like that makes a lot of sense. And
not sure how I feel about that, given how right I am about bad stuff.
I know, me neither, Siri. I don't think I understand either, but
just be careful what you say and make predictions on Jeff.
Yeah, like, dude, if you could just really keep your bucket 3 stuff to yourself, I'd really appreciate that. Because the reality,
we'll get there.
Yeah, could this totally happen? Yeah, like the way you said it makes a lot of sense. There's not a whole lot of difference between Kohl's Cash and Home Depot Cash now, right? We use Kohl's Cash. We're not. This is like we're being programmed, ready for this. The general community is gonna like eat it up. Joe Brown says it really well. All these handouts lead to handcuffs, and they don't even know it. Like, I really think that this is where I get to call it out to you guys and say, if you are watching this right now, make a point to like talk to your community. Really, if you really believe in what we're doing here, share this with your community. Figure out how to get them a little bit of Bitcoin. Very soon we'll have tools available for you guys to buy wallets on Economic Preppers that are actually already loaded with Bitcoin, like a Bitcoin gift card. These are the types of things that give you no excuse to not drop one in someone's stocking, and allow them to learn what it's like to own 1 million Satoshis and see what it's like to see the value go up over time. And I think simple things that we could do to help each other, not just in crypto, because we haven't gotten to even talk my favorite topic yet in gold and silver, but this is our responsibility. We must help one another win. Exactly what you're doing. Bitcoin accepted here. It doesn't necessarily, you're not going to door knocking and asking people to accept Bitcoin into their heart. What you're doing is saying, hey, Bitcoin exists and I take it. And it gets the curiosity going. And then when they have a question where they say, man, my bank account's hurting, like I don't trust the banks, I don't know what to do. Bitcoin is this thing. I'm going to go talk to Ben. That guy, I'll go get some wine, honey. I'll be right back. What do you mean you're going to go get some wine? Why are you taking $30,000 with you? I need wine.
Well, just to wrap up a couple.
I mean,
I want to say something
putting
real
that
quick.
out there into the real world. Go for it.
Yes, give Ben your Bitcoin. I want to say something real quick because you mentioned just giving someone Bitcoin, and I've talked about this before. And my grandpa used to give me $2 bills every year, and as a kid, I was just so excited. I was like, "Wow, $2 bills!" I knew nothing about money or anything like that. You know, the adults were just giving, and these are special because like they don't make them anymore or whatever they said. But they're just pieces of paper, and I've kept those $2 bills, and I'm happy about it. But I'm also sad because if my grandpa had been giving me something like Bitcoin or like silver or gold or even stocks, right, instead of just fiat dollars, I'd be much better off. Maybe those things would have been worth nothing, but they at least had the potential to be worth more. So I think if you're listening to this, you're in a situation like if you have kids, grandkids, cousins, nephews, nieces, whatever, or just people you like to give presents to. Don't give them cash. Don't give them cash. Give them something like Bitcoin, or if you really like Litecoin, you can give them Litecoin. That's probably better than fiat. Give them wine. Give them things that could appreciate in value, because I think they'll thank you down the road.
Oh, a couple comments to close it, and then I'll end with a positive note. But first off, the reason I like this theory so far, because it tends to hold water when I test it, is like I see a path to how they could eliminate cash. They could eliminate cash if everything's trapped within that CBD system. And I can see now how they could trap it there and also be arm's length saying, well, the retailers are giving you the apps, not us. And you're signing up to be in it because you're downloading the app, kind of what you do. Like when you open up a phone and you open up a computer, you really don't have a choice. You just hit the yes and you move on. But we've also tested this a couple of years ago within the retail side where we did shrink. We closed all the small businesses. We had that shutdown. And then we injected money into stimulus right into the big box stores, and we kept them open. So that's their path. If we have any issues with banks or retailers that have, dramatic stock results between now and the launch of the Fed coin, whatever, when that happens, here's a path that they could allow them to inject currency right directly and nationalize the banks and those employers. So let me end on one last positive note here, which is that, hey, not everybody's on board with this, even at leadership. So we have Ron DeSantis and other states that are already saying that they want to ban CBDCs, and there are battles already out there. There's Ted Cruz is against it. We have Ron Paul against it. So there's lots of people that are like, they're awake. They understand what CBDC is and the damage it can do. So it's not all on the hip. It's not everybody is against us. But now it's time to turn over to one of Patrick's favorite topic, and I know that he likes to jump right into this, which is gold, silver, and precious metals, and prepping in general. So there's going to be lots to talk about here. First off, we just have a new high in terms of dollars for gold. Patrick, what are your thoughts here? Why is gold going up so much?
Because the banks want it, because fiat's failing, and fiat is garbage. So what else are you going to buy? Mortgage-backed securities? They're buying gold. Like, there's no way. I mean, today we saw in one market, I guess, I don't know if it hit most markets, but I know in one market it hit an all-time high. So that's beautiful. Silver should be pumping up right against it. And I just don't believe that the banks have enough money to be able to keep the derivatives down. Like, I just don't believe that they can float it. This is about to bust.
Yeah, I think that, we've seen it, Dylan. Like, we've got a lot of banks that are already stockpiling gold. It's at a record number. It's the highest amount they've had since 1967. Are they bracing for a reset? Are they thinking that the currencies might just go poof and we have to go back to a metal standard?
I don't think anyone is going to go back to a metal standard at this point in time. Maybe they might say things or imply it, but we've done that. We've tried it. It's failed. We decided to move on from that. But I mentioned this before, is the reason why they might be buying something like gold and silver, those type of physical assets are really good if you can defend your right of ownership over that. So if you have a military, if you have a lot of guns, a lot of weapons, a lot of physical power to project, to make it hard for someone to come in and physically take that from you, that's not a bad asset to hold. Right? If you don't have that, it's a bad asset to hold because someone's going to take it from you who does have those things.
Security.
So if they're stockpiling these things, it tells me is that there's a lot more volatility they're seeing in the markets, and we can't deny that, right? The past few years have been a whirlwind, and so things like if we're seeing bank collapse, we're seeing just like wild swings in the financial markets. They're probably thinking, well, it might be wise to hold something that isn't as correlated with those markets, right? Decorrelate our portfolios, decorrelate our investments. So if there is some sort of collapse or there is some sort of issue, we're protected, right? We can have something of value to trade. And so I see that's why they're buying these things. I don't think it necessarily means there's going to be a collapse. So anyways, that's my thoughts on that.
Well, the banks are definitely getting prepared. So, and that's part of the segment. I know, Ben, you like to be prepared. What are your favorite strategies, both economic and otherwise, for being prepared for whatever may come down the road?
Well, economically, I just buy Bitcoin and try and maintain a savings account to get me through any hard times. But running a business, it's kind of on me. So I keep sales coming in and we're all set. Wine's a beautiful thing because it gets better with age and I don't have to worry about moving a ton. But my background is I grew up on a self-sustaining farm. It was my dad's dream to grow all his own food and live off the grid and everything. So I moved home and built a house on my family's property, and we either grow all our own food or I trade for it or spend Bitcoin on it for the most part. And I find knowing your food source is so important because and also like just don't be in the city if bad things happen. But knowing your food source is super important because we saw how supply lines got so disrupted during COVID. That was one. If money just gets completely disrupted, if things go off the rails there, that really disrupts everything, and you can't really expect your food to arrive at the right time. So yeah, I find it super important to know your food producer and be at a point where like they would supply you over someone else because they know you. Develop that relationship. One, get better food in that way, but develop that relationship in case you really need it, because you can rely on people to help you out, but you have to develop that relationship beforehand.
Yeah,
absolutely. So
that was beautiful. That was like perfectly said. That's exactly what we said. Did you watch every one of our shows and come up with that answer?
That's why I've been wanting to come on with you guys, because I totally relate. Definitely grew up with a preppers in a prepper world and have all these connections with people, and it's such a beautiful thing to say, yeah, my buddy did this, and I trade wine for everything, but my dad's got everything on electricity grid, and they're practically off the food grid. I just need to get them off the financial grid and onto Bitcoin.
Well, one step at a time. But as Lynette Zhang said last week, it's basically an eight points that you want to talk about: food, water, energy, security, barterability, wealth preservation, community, and shelter. And we've hit on pretty much all those. But there's one thing that we sometimes we do have to clean up, and that's like we always like to share one product. And this product is going to be it's an interesting one. I know, Patrick, you definitely know about this one, so I'm going to ask you about it. These are portable wipes that come in a tube. But basically, think of a clean sheet, some toilet paper that's a very easy way to store, and then it works. So, Patrick, you have some experience using this product or know about it?
It's a tiny little tablet. It's like this big, and as soon as you just and it comes out, and it's just this nice, beautiful piece to wipe anything that you need to wipe, whether it be mustard off your fingers or poop off your baby's bunsies or anything like that. But the reality is you can get like a lot of these in a small package, and they even come in towel sizes too. So it is really nice on the go for a family. It's a good prepping item. I recommend everyone at least get one to play around with. It'll keep your kids busy for a few hours.
Yes.
I recommend those, not specifically, but I'm probably going to buy some. there's nothing worse than being on a trail, being camping, whatever, and need to wipe something and not have an appropriate wipe. I mean, you guys have probably all seen or heard the horror stories of poison ivy being confused with an appropriate wipe.
Yeah, no one needs that. No
So
one
if you're
needs
on the,
that.
especially if
Yeah,
it's portable.
I am so prepared for that not to happen in my life. Like, that is one thing I am so prepared. It's never going to happen. I have my entire exterior perimeter of my garage made out of toilet paper. There's a reason why Costco puts limits on stuff. I exist.
Well, go
I'm
ahead,
gonna
Dylan.
have to put up a toilet paper photo along with my eggs of scarce, desirable assets for my background now.
And don't forget, for every man watching, I'm serious. If you're a man out there watching, a biological man, and you have a biological female wife who is able to have that time of the month, stock up some of those supplies. I swear to you, you can get a coin of real gold if you make a package with 12 chocolates and just a couple of those packages of feminine stuffs that we don't know exists. What's in the box? I don't know. Throw the whole box in there. That'll trade for a gold coin easily every month per man that you know.
Yeah,
That's actually probably good advice. Yeah.
anything I've heard many different things, like anything from like a box, any whatever level of income that you have, even having a box of matches will have value in the future if things really get complicated. So you can do things at all different price points, from getting one dime out of silver, that's a couple bucks, to a box of matches. So, all right, we've run the gamut of the first 5 sections. So now we know it's time for a little of history and woo-woo. So I know I'm going to flash back about 20 years. I know, Ben, this was one of your revelation and red pill moments in 2001, that particular month of September. But are you guys familiar what happened the day before 9/11?
That was 2 days before my birthday.
That's right. It is your birthday season. And actually, don't you have one on the way that's about due that time too?
Yeah, he's due on my birthday.
Yeah. Well, maybe he shows up then. Maybe he shows up a couple days early. But I wanted to go over a little bit of the history and what bucket each one fits into. But there were some very interesting things that relate back to the economy, to bring it all together, about what happened on the day before September 11th. So the September 10th, which was a Monday. So the biggest story is Donald Rumsfeld came out on a Monday. Now, normally they don't announce bad financial news on a Monday, if at all possible. Say unexpected, unscheduled. Don't worry about Federal Reserve. They normally do that midweek, but they try to hide and bury stories like Friday afternoon or the holiday or like the day after Thanksgiving. This was a Monday. And Donald Rumsfeld came out and said, we can't account for $2.3 trillion of spending on September 10th. That wasn't announced then. And there was a big audit of they were going to try and find this. And there was activity both in New York and Washington, D.C. And it just so happens that the people that were involved in this happened to be in the Pentagon and another particular building, which we'll get to a video of that as well. But I'm going to stick to the facts. We're going to stick to bucket 1 and bucket 2. So bucket 1, this announcement happened. Bucket 2, we don't know exactly what became this, but this was announced on the Monday before that dramatic event in New York and Washington, D.C. So moving forward, we've got this webpage here, which it's a little bit of an eye chart, but it covers what happened. This is the factual, suspicious facts of what happened and transpired on September 10th. So the first one was the Rumsfeld announcement, and then FEMA happened to show up in New York the night before. That was an interesting one that they just happened to be showing up there. There were alarm bells sounding on the stock exchange the day before. There were war plans against Afghanistan on George Bush's desk. I don't know much about the exercise mode of this one, so I'll skip over it. But a particular general just stepped down right before this. And also some Pentagon officials canceled flights on that day for the flights the next day. And then to move on, this particular video, this is a video that's very hard to find. This is just a still of it. Let's see if I can zoom in a little bit. But this is a BBC broadcast from about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I think it was like 4:20 or so. And this is a woman broadcasting about the collapse of the Solomon Brothers building, which I believe was part of the auditors of the Treasury to try to find this value. The building that's highlighted right next to the words "not collapsed," that is Building 7. Now, she was announcing on BBC News at 4:20 in the afternoon that this building had collapsed. But on video, we have evidence that it's still standing when she's talking. And then 30 minutes later, it collapsed in pretty much what looks like to be like a controlled demolition straight downwards. Again, this is all factual information, bucket one stuff, and it's all historical. So it just makes you wonder about why would they do this to hide or what they cover things up? And there is more to the story. I mean, there's, I'm not going to get into that. There's a conspiracy there. But I think, Patrick, you have the other video that's interesting that comes up about George and that particular morning where he was on that event. So let's add that to the stream. Let's go ahead and watch this.
Look at the letter at the end and remember the sound it makes. Get ready. Hi. Yes, hi.
So he's in a classroom with other kids at this exact same time. And they're doing a lesson.
Get ready to read this word the fast way. Get ready. Yes. Sound it out. Get ready. Sound it out. Get ready. What word? Yes.
Kite.
Boys and girls, sound this word out. Get ready. What word? Steal. Yes, steal. Read these words the fast way. Get ready. Play. Yes, play. Get ready. Must. Yes, must. Let's read these words the fast way without making a mistake.
I love Patrick's face.
Get ready. Kite. Yes, kite. Get ready. Kick. Yes, kick. Get ready. Steal. Yes, steal. Get ready. Play. Yes, playing. Get ready. Must. Yes, must. Go to your speaker reader up from under your seat. Open your book up to
What day was this?
September 11th.
Huh.
So while he was actually watching the lesson, continue a little bit. Go ahead and play a little bit more. Come on, Patrick, play a little bit more.
60 on page 153.
A gentleman's about to tell him that they're under attack. That's what that gentleman just came in and told him in the corner. Now this gets to be the little bucket two parts.
How's he going to save this one?
At the count of 3, everyone should be on page 153. If the yellow paper is going to log, you drop it. Thank you. Everybody touch the title of your story. Fingers under the title. Get ready to read the title, The Fast Way. We're waiting for one member. Thank you. Fingers
This
under
was
the
more
title
bucket
of the
two.
story. Get ready. The pet goat. Yes, the pet goat. Fingers under the first word of the story. Get ready to read the story the fast way. Get ready. The girl had a pet goat. Go on. She likes to go running with her pet goat. Go on. She plays with her tail. Try it again. Get ready from the beginning of that sentence. Get ready. She played with her goat in her house. Go on. She played with her goat in her yard. Good job. Go on. But the goat did something that made the girl sad. Let's clean that up. Get ready.
Wait till you talk about how he's holding the book. And this is where they talk about the goat. Now, there's a video called The Pet Goat. The Pet Goat 2, which is a different rabbit hole. We'll go down another time. But I think that the very first part, and we see the symbolism for the goat and the satanic nature of it. But the key part, the very first part, I think is really telling. Those 5 words, this video is very hard to find. I will tell you this right now. Not many people have seen this.
So the video is bucket 1, right?
The video happened.
Let's read these
Patrick's
words
still playing it and
fast
trying to
without
just like.
making a mistake.
The interpretation's got to be bucket 3, or bucket 3, right?
Bro, fake plane must hit steel. What's fake about who? What? What stupid teacher brought that up? Who approved that one? That's what I want to know. Why? Who is this lady? Let's find this teacher. Where'd she get those lists of words? Why does she get that list of words? And what are you talking about bowing? Bro, who cares if he's reading a book upside down? You just heard that everything.
That's fair.
What do you think you're gonna do? You're gonna read a book? You're not reading no book. You're just pretending to do whatever it is so the kids don't get scared. What are you trying to talk about here? Goats and
So all that after that point, yes. After the 5 words, it gets to be much more speculative.
I need to know who the lady is, and we need to go
She's a
find her
teacher.
and ask
She's
her
a
where she
teacher in a
got the
DC
word.
area school.
Who are the kids? They've got to know.
Yes,
Why would the kids know?
Well, they're adults now.
they're adults now.
Oh,
Yeah, they were. Well, I don't know who the kids are, but I'm just saying this is what happened that morning, and this video is not really shared that often. It's very interesting. Those particular 5 words that they happen to be talking about at that exact moment. So, hey, I mean, just wanted to put that out there.
I just want to
What are
say,
you trying to say here?
like the
I
interpretation.
need to understand what you are. Bring it full circle.
They knew it was going to happen, and they knew it was a fake plane.
Well,
Fake plane must hit steel.
I read that.
the interpretations seem a little suspect, bucket 3. But what is very suspect that we haven't talked about is they lost $2.3 trillion.
That's a fact. That's a fact.
That's like
$2.3 trillion dollars cannot be accounted for.
that's almost 10% of. I mean, it's
That was
almost
huge back
10% of
then.
total
I
debt
mean,
right now.
I'd take a tenth of that now for sure. But I'm just saying 2.3 trillion was a big chunk of change that they couldn't account for. And they announced it the day before. This was a fact. Bucket 1. This is announced. And the people that were auditing things that were going on were in 2 of the buildings that aren't talked about as much as the World Trade Center. Like the Pentagon was hit by some mystery, like some. I don't know if Tom Cruise's Top Gun could have hit the side of that building, considering where that's at. It's like 50 yards from a highway. It's right there next to a highway. And then you've got the building 7 that was announced as it went down, but it didn't go down until 30 minutes later. These are all bucket 1 facts.
How much?
They're just like no true answer. They did a report. They actually, the NIH or the NIST announced a report in 2008 of why building 7 went down. They said it was office fires and around one particular column. There's no way that would have happened. No way.
Do you know how much we spent in Afghanistan?
It's all like monopoly money. So no, I don't know. It's probably comparable of a couple trillion.
That's over a large amount of years. I'm just saying the reason why I say that is
It was
like
about 2.3 trillion.
I'm just saying like
I just looked it up.
that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. Ben, I don't know if you're familiar with our buckets. Bucket 1 is rock solid stuff. Bucket 3 is way out there. Bucket 2 is in between. What's your take on all this fun stuff from September of 2001?
The day before my birthday.
I'll take that into account, Patrick. So there is so much speculation in this, and I can go along with a lot of rabbit holes here, but I don't think you need much more than the bucket 1 of watching the videos and understanding how these buildings fell and why they would what would make them fall that way, and then the official reports that are different that say different reasons behind that. And you can infer whatever you want. You can infer whoever's behind it. We don't really know, but what we do know is that the buildings fell very quickly and look like controlled demolitions, and we're told that they aren't. And so wherever you want to go after that, I don't have a ton of information there. And anything in that video, any of the satanic cult stuff, I'm that's more of I'll believe it when I see it.
3.
Specifically with George Bush, I didn't know him personally, but my sister did. My sister was on his daughter's softball team, and go stay at their house, and thought he was all I can say is she thought he was a great dude, but also not presidential worthy specifically. So that's all I have to go off of like who this guy is and whether you get like sucked into these satanic cults and stuff when you get on the inside or whatever. Like I have no idea, but what I do know is that the official narrative for 9/11 is, in my opinion, wrong, and given the evidence seems wrong. And where do I go from there? I just stop believing what I'm told and have to go in and
That's it.
Well, if we just confine the discussion to bucket one, that's why we use the buckets. Bucket one, there's a whole lot of stuff in bucket one that's like makes you scratch your head and say, hold on a minute. I mean, we've got a video here. Patrick, show how the building 7 fell down. Tell me how this is based on office fires.
There was smoke. Well, there's smoke, there's fire.
Watch this building come straight down as if it was a controlled demolition.
It's a very big fire from the inside, like a dragon's fire from like Voldemort or something,
We'll cover
really
Dragon's Breath another day.
You don't need more than bucket one for 9/11. It's
that's right.
Just look at it.
That's the point. And I don't want to confuse and conflate things with bucket 2 and bucket 3. That's why I didn't want to go too much further into that video. But I mean, that video happened. I mean, that he was in that classroom. They were talking about.
It collapsed like a blanket coming down, like controlled demolition straight up.
If you listen to the engineers about all 3 buildings, the way
Where
that
did they
fell,
say the plane hit there?
There was no plane that hit at building 7.
Guys,
How'd it fall?
Guys, I think I'm hung up on the 2.3 trillion.
There we
so
go.
I asked some questions earlier about how much you spent in Afghanistan, how many people died. The debt in the United States in 2001, you can just Google these, right? Let's see here. It was 3.39 trillion in September 2001, and it went to 6.39 trillion by the end of 2008. So we're missing the entire debt that we owe.
Yep.
Almost the entire amount. And then we spent about 2.3 trillion in Afghanistan over 20 years. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money.
What are you talking about?
No,
fires from the trade center from over 300 feet away is what caused fires from the south that made it burn down and collapse.
That's this
they
focus.
had a ton of paper that was shredded that got on fire. I mean, they were destroying documents like crazy.
I just read this.
Is building sympathy,
structural
sympathy.
What I'm saying is the big thing that stands out to me in these, if we're going these buckets, is that's a lot of money, and we've spent that much money over longer periods of time. And so, if you want to hide or cover up that money, the events on that day, on the 11th of September 2001, that's minuscule. If you look at how many people died in the war in Afghanistan, which came after that, it was let's see here. There's different estimates, but thousands and thousands of people, right? Way more than on that day.
Think of the implications. I'm sorry, Dylan, but think of the implications of that dramatic event. It drew away you had an announcement of we can't find the national debt worth of money the day before, and then all of a sudden the accountants that were and Solomon Brothers that were doing some of the accounting, and the Treasury and the CIA, which were in Building 7, the SEC, I think it was the SEC, but all their documentation, which was immediately closed because of these events in the Pentagon and Building 7, because they didn't have the documents anymore, they closed the investigations. That's the part that gets washed under the bridge. But stick to what happened in bucket 1. We had the accountants go away. The accountants just went. Building 7 went away. That particular section of the Pentagon with all the accountants in it went away. And if you go follow the money or follow the money that's missing, that's really, the conspiracy theory holds a lot of water that the entire event was to cover up this missing debt that was laundered somewhere. Where did the money go? Look at the deep thoughts in Patrick.
Okay, so why one building 370 feet away?
Building 7 was the target.
16 buildings, and a lot of them that are closer, 20 feet away.
Building 7 was the target the whole time because of what was in Building 7.
I don't think I could blow up a building with that much precision to blow up another building 370 feet away.
Exactly, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, what did you put in here, bro? It's like 75% wine now. It keeps going up.
Yeah, mine seems to be out. So this has been quite the show. Ben, I really want to thank you for joining us. I want to share your website one more time here. Let's get this up here. We got peonylanewine.com, and that'll be in the show notes. Please join Ben, support him, spend a little of your Bitcoin, find a place to get some nice wine with your Bitcoin at Peony Wine.
So I cannot accept Bitcoin directly from my website. I accept it from the Oshi app. It's a headache getting big. So for alcohol sales, I have to have a license in every state that I ship to, and I, as a small winery, don't have 50 liquor licenses. Dealing with bureaucracy for one is enough of a headache. So I use a third party, and I have not been able to orange pill that third party. So they have given me a really hard time in being able to accept Bitcoin directly from my website. Working on them and working on a solution there. But the Oshi app, OSHI, is how I accept Bitcoin for sales over the internet right now.
Excellent.
Thanks for having me, though. This is a lot of fun. I'm definitely laughing that I love that 9/11 came up when I came on.
Well, that's karma speaking there.
My first red pill moment, and it took me a long time to really swallow that pill, but it was foundational for me to see those videos and have a little bit of distrust as far as like what I'm being told. So,
and there's so
great chatting with you guys.
Great chatting with you, Ben. We really enjoyed you being here. Dylan, any parting words?
I think we might need to just do a economic preppers meetup in Colorado. You know, Ben brings his wine. We find people to bring some high quality meats, other prepper things.
I love meat.
Bitcoin's accepted the whole time. It's beautiful here in Colorado in the summer. You know, what do you think? Let us know in the comments below if you'd be up for a Colorado economic prepper event.
Please let us know, and we'll get the commitment from you guys. We'll definitely be there. We love to entertain, and we love to extend our community and help you with economic preppers and events, and go out there and spread the good word. Patrick, what else? Any final thoughts for today?
Yeah, I want to mention one thing that Ben mentioned a little bit earlier in the show. He said, make sure that you get to know the people in your community, because when stuff hits the fan, the people that you've developed relationship, they're going to allocate those resources to their friends first. So one, understand that. And two, Ben, I would like to have maybe agreement made between us right now on video. Should crap hit the fan and I would need a box of wine, could I be like in your top 10 of like, I'll just send you, double the amount of Bitcoin and then you accept me wine? Could we make that formal agreement right now together?
Who's shipping the wine if shit hits the fan? That's what I gotta ask. But
I don't care where it comes from. I just will give you Bitcoin. Make it happen.
I got enough wine. Just come out. My cellar's a bunker. There we go.
That's why you make friends, family. So remember to make community, because that's what matters the most. The people that you know, the people you pour into, even if your friends are selling a product or their business is just a little bit more expensive than the competitor, it matters where you spend your money. Like, I don't care that I'm a wine aficionado or not. All I know is if I'm going to buy some wine, I'm going to support my bro. It's just that simple. It's that simple, guys. Just support your friends.
It's funny that Patrick closed with that statement, and especially the number 10, because I almost forgot to mention this, but I want to go out there and I want to close with this. I challenge everyone that can hear me to do a 10 by 10 challenge. Find 10 people within 10 miles that if things hit the fan, that you can rely on for whatever. If we build that community, go out, have a meetup, whatever you need to do. Have somebody that if your car breaks down, if you need a bottle of wine, if you need some lead, or if you need to know what to do in an emergency, if you just want to talk about what's going on, get 10 people within 10 miles, go out and do that and build your community. So with all that said, and a lot said today and plenty of wine, I want to say be prepared and not scared, and we'll see you next time.